What is up, guys? Tips here. Today I'm going to be covering the 0.9.2 patch notes that came out, I would say about 2 to 3 days ago. I just had a chance to comment on it, and I kind of want to tell you guys where the meta is going and what's going to be happening with all the new deck builds, and what's the new synergy, what's the new strategy that's coming up, and, you know, keeping you guys in the loop for this specific meta, for this 0.9.2 notes. Starting off, I'm going to be showing you guys a video of what Riot posted. It's 60 seconds, quickly explains all the big changes they made. I don't want to waste your time, so I want you guys to just quickly watch that. I'll speed it up so it goes by quick, so check it out. Alright, now that we have the video done, we are going to go through the actual small changes they made that is actually going to make a big impact on the meta. Black Spear, it is going from a 2 cost to a 3 mana cost. This is going to be huge because now we can't do cheesy plays with the Shadow Isles. You know, before you would be able to like kill some of like a 3 or 4 mana cost minion with this. You could use it, you know, as a, for example, if you were in the mid-range game where you're like, I don't know, doing something with like Hecarim at the time, you could pop this if one of your Ephemerals dies. It was just such a really strong card that I'm glad they nerfed this. The Vanguard Lookout, who is now, well, he actually got a new name, but he's also an elite now. Mage Seekers now have new abilities, which are really wild. Crowd Favorite went from 2 health to 1, which is pretty big. Iceborne Legacy went from, instead of being a burst, now it's a slow that grants better stats. You have Pack Mentality, which now it's not as confusing as it was before, the text, and it gives all your allies basically 2/2 and overwhelm for the round. Pro Snacks went from 4 to 3 mana cost. Troop of Elnuks got a new text. Navori Conspirator is down 1 attack. Chump Wump is down 1 health. Flash of Brilliance is now creating a 6 cost spell. Rummage, they just fixed it, so now you can discard with just 1 card. Unstable Politician, now you don't have to cast a 6 cost spell before. You can do it whenever and he'll still get his ability. Brood Awakening went from 6 to 5 mana, and Mark of the Isles, of course, went from giving all of your guys 3/3 to 2/2, and the Rekindler cost went down by 1. So this is really big, right? This is huge. Alright guys, so now we'll be talking about my predictions as to what I believe is the next meta and why it's going to be shifting in that direction. So as we saw by all of the cards, they're all really insane. The really big ones, so I'll explain this, how I've been kind of making sense of it in my head. So what were the biggest cards in 0.9.1? So the previous patch notes, right? So we had, of course, Hecarim. He was basically always played at turn 6, and once you had him in any deck, he would just be an overkill type of deck. You could put him in anything with Dawn Spiders. You can put him in anything with a Hecarim Rally, where he constantly attacks. You could put him in a Deathmark deck combined with Zed. He was just very, very strong, and he was really, all you had to do was just play by the mana curve, and you would always just end up stomping your opponent, which was actually a problem because the win rate was insane. Alright guys, so there are a few ways that we'll be able to kind of decipher how the meta is gonna go and in what direction it's heading, right? So I'll explain to you the exact like belief system that I'm basically following, right? So first thing, which decks were actually like the best out of the whole group? So if we're specifically going to look at the best decks out there, so we had, of course, Control Ezreal was one of them. We had anything with Hecarim was literally dominating the meta for 0.9.1, which was last patch. Anything when it came to Karma Control was really strong. I don't know if you guys were playing that. We also had a lot of Zed, a lot of Ephemeral, Ionia burn decks, where you just go face rush and no one can really do anything because you're an elusive. So those were basically the strong strong decks for that specific patch. But what was really exactly changed? So we've already looked at the cards that were, you know, manipulated, like Black Spear, things like Hecarim's base health, Hecarim's like the Ephemerals he summons have one less attack, like things like that. So we know that those specific cards, if we're going to look over to Hecarim, well, Shadow Isles specifically. So now that Hecarim's a 4/5, this is huge, because now this is gonna basically at turn 6, it's going to stop him from, you know, from this deck from escalating to just, you know, running on the mana curve that it's so used to. So like I mentioned earlier, that Hecarim, like how it was the deck, the whole Shadow Isles was just mana curve dependent. But now what Riot is trying to do is they're trying to actually make it so you actually have to have some skill in it, right? You don't just play a specific like order of cards, which used to be Fearsome, all the way to Hecarim, and then, you know, Ledros, Raza, and stuff like that. That's all like from like when the game started, but like it was still too easy. You know what I mean? Shadow Isles was still way too easy. So now what they really want to utilize is his amazing level up buff, where now look at those stats, they're really nice, and you eventually do end up giving attack damage to all your Ephemerals. So they want you to go more towards an ephemeral feel rather than something like just, you know, playing Hecarim or playing any of his cards just in one go in like one specific manner. So I really enjoy that change. But that being said, if we go to the 6 mana drops, we can see by all regions, we can specifically see which decks are probably going to do a lot better now, right? Now that his health dropped from 4 to 6, now it's 4/5. So if we look at the champions that actually do match up with Hecarim, we can see over here Garen's 5/5 stats can actually kill Hecarim now, which is pretty amazing. We also know that Ashe, for the most part, can do the same thing. She can kill him now at 4 cost only. So with just that being said, these champions are able to kill Hecarim, and they're even like cheaper to play. So I think you're gonna see a huge increase in more Frejlord players as well as Demacia players. It's going to be something that's really I think like game changing. Frejlord is definitely gonna be coming up as well as Demacia. And the reason I'm saying that is because, okay, now that we know which champions could actually fight Hecarim at this point, what we want to do is we want to exactly now go to the decks that were actually pretty decent back in the other patch, right? So what decks were pretty decent? We had decks like Ashe Freeze, Ashe Harrowing, for you guys that don't know. You know, you basically just have your board, you play a good mana curve, and then you just end up harrowing, and you just dominate them by freezing all of their minions, and you just kind of, you know, go face from there. That was Ashe, and you know, Garen had his elite deck, which was really still, like, it wasn't crazy OP, but it was in the middle, right? It was Malcolm in the middle somewhere. So just with that being said, that they were average decks last patch, with this, it's going to make them even skyrocket even more and be a little more over the edge of the Shadow Isle. And, you know, you're probably going to be like, oh, tips, like, you know, that's just, it's the whole point of that is like a balance system. Yeah, there is a balance system, but up to a certain point, I just think that if you were a pretty good, like pretty average deck, I think this is basically a buff, and you're basically buffing this region, these regions specifically, just based off of these stats, and that the fact that they can fight Hecarim on that. So that's my take on it, at least. So if we also look at some of the other Shadow Isle cards, you saw Black Spear. The mana is up now. It's like instead of 2, it's 3. So you won't be able to just trade your mini, you know, your 1/1s for like a Zed now. With you know, that used to be really strong with Shadow Isles. They used to be able to have low cost minions, and you could just trade these big like 3 mana, 4 mana monsters, and really that was too insane. And then on top of that, you would Black Spear. So based off of that, right, if we look at Mark of the Isle, right, 2/2, it was nerfed. It was 3/3 before. So based off of that, what I'm thinking is now you're gonna see more minions actually are gonna be alive. And who would Shadow Isles usually target with the specific, you know, Mark of the Isles and Black Spears? It was usually a lot of the champions like Ezreal, you had champions like Elise, you had champions like Zed, like all of these 3 to 4 mana champions like were always dying by the Shadow Isles. So I believe that now we're going to be seeing a large amount of players actually coming about with specifically, I think, quick attack champions, because you know, anyone can stop like Elise, you know, doing the trade, but with quick attack, they're very unique in the fact that you need to have better stats per se in order so that they can attack you, then you can attack them back, right? And kill them. So I just feel like with Shadow Isles and Mark of the Isles specifically, you were able to just make these crazy trades with any quick attack minion. And you know, then if he wants to like do something like give himself barrier or something, you just Black Spirit after, or you get rid of the barrier, then you Black Spear him and GG. But now it's not that simple with how the buff, how basically Shadow Isles was nerfed. So we're going to be seeing, I think, a lot more quick attacks like Zed. Lucian is part of that whole combo. I think as well Draven falls in there. Jinx falls in there. Like, we're going to be seeing a crazy amount of just quick attack minions who are not going to be dying as much, and having that extra turn to be alive is, you know, really does a lot if you really think about it. For Lucian, you can get Cena 1 turn after. For like Jinx, you can proc your rocket possibly. Draven, get more axes, you know, stuff like that, right? So looking at the quick attack minions now, since I basically explained why I think quick attack is going to be coming up, right? Now that Shadow Isles can't really stop them, and Shadow Isles was one of the most played out of a lot of the regions and what out of all the decks. So now I can see that all these other decks are going to be stemming out, which have quick attack minions, right? All right, now we're going to use the same logic that we did to find out, you know, why I think Demacia and Frejlord are actually buffed, and they're going to be played a lot more in this meta, right? So what decks were actually good that had quick attack minions in last patch? So I would say cards like, well, you had Zed, right? So Zed, you had what is it? You had not Burst Zed. You had Burn Zed, right? Burn Zed literally was a pretty good deck. You know, you just buff all your minions until you can just keep going face and no one can touch you with your elusives. So Zed, like, I think that's gonna literally, the fact that you can live one more turn means you have you're gonna have another turn to summon another ephemeral, and then just basically you, like, if you do enough damage, you can pretty much eliminate your opponent with 1 less turn, and that's a lot in my opinion. With Lucian, right? Lucian, of course, he worked with, I don't have him. With Lucian, you have people like Senna. You can proc her probably a turn, like you'll have Lucian alive for Senna, which is really big, and I think that's at least gonna be what a lot of people are gonna be playing, because that's an ugly combo, and by ugly I mean it burns, it hurts, dude, if you can't clear him as Shadow. So I just think so many more people are gonna be playing Lucian. Then Draven and Jinx. Have you guys know any decks that, so right now, well, from last patch, they had the Jinx Draven like rush that goes crazy, just deals it just constantly, you know, just discard your hand, the discard deck, right? You discard your hand, and then you eventually just, like, you know, you go ape shit and just eliminate your opponent in like under like turn 5 or 6. So I think that, like, since quick attacks are going to be coming up, I believe that deck is literally going to skyrocket. It's going to be one of the strongest ones out there. Now I'll be quickly going through every single champ. The regions we're going to want to look at specifically, I think, are Frejlord, Demacia, the quick attacks. So we're probably going to go with Ionia and Noxus. So I think these 4 are going to be the main players. And then we did have the Mage Seeker buff, so Piltover is going to be coming up as well. So as you can see, it was everyone except for Shadow Isle. But which one is probably going to end up doing the best here? So based off all the cards that, you know, were released, it was a lot of kind of, you know, let's control more of the board, but like it's a lot of buffs on like a lot of minions. So if you notice, they're just like, most of the cards are kind of like, oh, okay, I'll use a buff on this card and you give it to like a bunch of other minions. And that's great and all, you know, buffs are amazing. But usually when you do buffs on minions, you usually don't put it on the strongest minion, you know what I mean? Like, sure, like if it's late game, sometimes it happens or whatever. I don't know if he has overwhelmed just so you could win the game or something. But usually most cases, like, decks are, if you're gonna buff someone, they're gonna be kind of like low minion like tier or kind of mid tier or like something around that ballpark. So I think that a lot more people are gonna be playing rush cards. Like, you know, spiders are gonna be a huge thing. I think Shadow Isle, in terms of now, it's not gonna be all like, you know, let's play it by the mana curve and then hope for Hecarim and GG. It's gonna be more of like, let's focus on ephemerals. Let's focus on smaller minions like the spiders, Elisa's spiders. Elise is always gonna be good, in my opinion. She's like, why would you not have her in a Shadow Eyes deck? So much value out of her. But they want you to play, you know, things like maybe even like the Curse Keeper, smaller cards, you know what I mean? And then just kind of fill the board with these small cards and then basically just buff them. And that's what I think this specific patch is gonna come down to. It's just buffing your smaller minions and then making like a really like huge control board after a while that just constantly keeps playing over and over. As the turns go by, you constantly refill, and it's just a never-ending nasty just like group of, you know, minions that you have to deal with, right? So just based off of, you know, how they got that card, Brute Awakening, stuff like that, you know what I mean? It's for the lower minion monsters. And that being said, now think about it. If there's a lot of low minion monsters that are going to be getting buffs, who's going to actually benefit from that? You know what I mean? Of course, all these rush decks are going to be able to like utilize these cards for the most part. But, and not even, right, you can, it doesn't have to be a rush deck. Like, you could also have Elnuks. I feel like Elnuks are going to be a huge thing in Frejlord. Like, now that you can put that 5 cost card, the new one at least, well, the one that got changed for Iceborne Legacy, instead of it being like a burst and it's like less you know, power for your minions, it's like, now it's literally more power, but it's a little slower. So it just, Riot's kind of basically telling us they want the game to kind of, you know, take some time. You know, they don't want it to be so quick, easy. You know what I mean? They want to mix it up and have a good balance in the decks. Of course, there are going to be some decks that are going to be stronger than others. Just, you know, that's just how naturally the card games are, right? When you buff and nerf. So going at this logic with the Iceborne Legacy and stuff, the decks that I think in my head that are gonna actually kill things right now would be probably, well, the deck that I think is gonna probably dominate because of where this thing is headed with Iceborne Legacy and the whole spiders synergy stuff. I think we're gonna be seeing a huge increase in Barrier Fiora players. Fiora is hugely disgusting with all of her little tricks, you know, like barrier and just kind of like always on every single small minion. So I think she's literally going to capitalize on that opportunity the most out of everyone, right? So I could see Fiora just being even more dominating than what it was last patch. I did also forget to mention that Barrier Fiora was a huge thing, and it hasn't been ever like, you know, nerfed or buffed. It's been kind of just a stable deck. But I think this is like literally gonna force Fiora to just be played more, because you're gonna have all these little creatures that easily you can get your 4 kills and you win the game. So I think that's gonna be a quick one. Let me now go through every single region and I'll talk about all the decks, right? Even if we've already talked about it, I'm gonna go a quick overview. So Teemo, probably no difference. He is in a burn deck. If you guys have seen, you know, he's a decent, I guess, card, because he does like on average 1.6 damage per turn if you have him on turn 1, and then, you know, you progressively go up. I don't know how the math came about, but I've heard about it like in, you know, Reddit posts and stuff like that. So he's gonna be stable. Elise most likely is gonna be used a lot because of the spider synergy. That's really going to be a thing that Riot wants us to start playing more. Braum, with the Poros, right? We had that the Poro card was now like lowered by 1 mana cost. So I believe people are going to be running either Braum with the Poros, which he probably is for it, right? when you it takes a while, right? It's more of the control. That's kind of what they're leaning for. But I feel like people are gonna try and also use the Poros as more of like an aggressive deck, where you have maybe Zed, and you know, you just kind of go rush with all the Poros and stuff. So I could really also see that being a huge thing. And then we have like Draven over here, who I feel like since Jinx and Draven were so big last patch, I think it was a really good deck. It had a pretty decent good win rate. I think it's going to get even crazier with now how things are, with quick attack minions being huge. Of course, like, you know, spiders are big, so they might even start adding spiders to that deck, which, you know, is really beyond me, but I feel like there's more versatility. They've changed up how the discard works, so now it's even makes this deck even better with Draven and Jinx. Because now you can, you know, discard one only, and then, you know, get lucky, or, you know, get the cards you exactly need, and just, you know, rush and end the game quick. So we have Ezreal. Ezreal is probably not going to be seen as much as we hoped. A lot of his cards were nerfed. You know, the Elnox, you had the Chump Womps. A bunch of that stuff had to go because it was too OP, honestly. So I feel like we're gonna see Ezreal, maybe not anymore with the Frejlords too much. It's not that he's not bad, like he's probably balanced, you know, it's not that he's bad in that deck, but I feel like people are gonna want to experiment with Ezreal a lot more now. And I'm looking at the Ionians, to be honest, with because I feel like I've seen elusives and like Ionians can, like, they have a good amount of spells that you can use, and Deny would really help with Ezreal. You know, just to stop them from, stop the other player from stopping your stuff that you want to do. And there are a lot of stuns that could also work as targets, so maybe we might even see Ezreal Yasuo, but I feel like we're going to be losing a lot of the Ezreal's Frejlord because it's not going to be as good. And there are other cards that are better in other regions, but we're going to have to wait to see how that works, right? Fiora, like I said, Fiora Barrier is going to be hot and heavy, so we have to have a good look out for that. Kalista is the new card, basically the new changed champion. I believe she's going to be mixed in with synergy with, you know, all the new cards that came in, basically, or all the updated cards that were, you know, in the patch. I feel like she's just going to capitalize on all of the spiders that we have. She's going to capitalize on Ephemerals. I feel like we're not going to have Shadow Isles, you know, running that mana dependency anymore. It's going to be more of like Ephemerals and, you know, really seeing where the combos are, seeing how you can make a good combination of you know, creatures that work together to just either dominate the board completely or progressively get there, but with Ephemerals, and then, you know, using Hecarim as like the finisher. That's what I personally think is going to happen with Kalista. So we're going to be seeing some of that going about. Katarina, she is a quick attack minion, so we're going to see a lot more play from her, most likely with spiders. Like, is not as good as the other champions, but I could still see her really capitalizing on it because of her quick attack. Zed is going to obviously be in a lot of decks, most likely. He's always a good stable 3 cost, and he's more reliable. So I can really see with Zed, you know, being Zed burn or elusive burn, and just really ending turns like 1 or 2 turns earlier, because now that shadow is kind of out of the way. So even mixing Zed with Hecarim, I know that used to be a thing last patch, but, you know, I think with Zed playing in, you know, decks like Shadow, like Frejlord, but I think he's gonna be the new Rush, maybe with like Shadows, with Ephemerals, maybe, because they have the death mark. They might start bringing that type of gameplay back, where you mix in Shadow with Ionia, just so you can get that whole wombo combo going. And then maybe even add Hecarim into that deck, because now you're gonna have Ephemerals. I think that's gonna be a huge thing into this specific patch now. So Ashe was good with Ashe Harrowing last patch. I do think that Ashe is going to be a lot better now because Shadow isn't in the picture, and they were already a pretty good deck to begin with. So Ashe is definitely going to be seeing a lot more gameplay. I'm not sure if maybe you can mix her up with I just don't see how spiders are going to do anything, and I feel like she has her own little set of like minions that you want. Like, you're going to want to control the board in a different way, right? Like, instead of, you know, having to rely on spiders or something like that, what you're concerned about is getting your frost up, but we didn't really get anything from this patch too much, unless you want to maybe mix it up with poros, but still there's no frost in there, you know what I mean? There's really nothing that I think they added that could add to the Ashe deck. So even though she's gonna have a little slight buff, I don't think she's gonna be used as much. Maybe Ashe Herring will be a little bit better, but it's definitely not something where she's gonna be placed in different variety of decks. She's unique to herself. So we have to look at that specific picture, right? Jinx again with the Draven Rush is going to be huge. Shen, there weren't really many things for him in this patch either. I could see maybe people are going to play Callista with Shen, but I don't know. We have to see how it's really going to affect, because I could see, you know, the whole barrier combo is going to be like a, you know, pretty nice feel. So Callista will summon an Ephemeral and Shen will help Callista so she doesn't die. But I still don't think Shen is going to be really, there wasn't really that big changes within the patch that is going to make him, you know, really strong this patch. I truly don't believe so. Yasuo again, you might be able to mix him up with Zed or one of the more of the quick attacks, but still the fact that you can only mix Yasuo up with Noxus because of all the stuns, I just think he's gonna, you know, it's gonna be a regular deck. It's nothing too big or crazy. Garen is gonna capitalize a lot, like I mentioned, right? He can actually kill Hecarim with his stats. We were actually saying how Barrier Fiora is coming up. I believe the elite deck that he was part of, if you add Fiora into it, you turn it to like a elite slash, like, you know, Barrier Fiora kind of mixture, is going to be the best deck out there, just based off of all the updates and, you know, what I've been going and covering along as we're talking about it. I just think it's going to be extremely strong. So that's something to really keep an eye out. Heimendinger is always most likely going to see really good with the whole Mage Seeker combos. Like Lux and Heim is just a dead giveaway. That's literally all we're going to be seeing for them. So I don't see where else Heimendinger will go. Maybe mixed with like Lux and or maybe mixed with Ezreal. But I truly believe that Lux is literally gonna like hold hands with Heimendinger in this one because of all those, like, you know, the Mage Seekers. They're just really strong. You know, you need at least a 6 mana card or not. You need at least a 6 mana card plus, right? And that's literally in all of PNZ. So I truly believe you're going to be seeing Lux either with Ezreal or Heimendinger, but Heimendinger most likely for the board control. We've also got in, if we go by champions, right? So if we look at Karma, I believe Karma is not going to be seen as much in this patch, just because if you think about the nerf. So in terms of Karma, how people were always playing Karma is basically she was a 5 mana cost. And you would play her on turn 5, right? And then if she dies on turn 6, you just rekindle her and she's alive. Woo! But I don't think that Rekindler is so I know it was supposed to kind of nerf things in the Shadow Isle realm, but I didn't really do anything, because if you think about it, Hecarim is a 6 cost and Rekindler was a 6 cost. They're never gonna collide together. So it just makes sense Hecarim would die and then you rekindle the next turn. But what you really ended up doing is just you messed up the Karma decks, because now at turn, imagine they die in between of turn 6. Like, what do you do now? You can't rekindle anymore. So I'm gonna call it, there's like gonna be a huge downfall in the Karma decks. She's really fun with control, but I just don't really see her being played as much anymore, just because of that stupid Rekindler nerf. And Thresh, there's nothing really big with any changes with him. Maybe with Ephemerals, I guess, but like honestly, they're like, you know what I mean? I guess you could throw him with Callista and Hecarim because they all synergize, right? You want at least your ephemeral minions to die, collect them, get Hecarim quick. That's how I could see it happening. Vladimir, sadly, no really good changes for him, so he's gonna be on the average Joe list. We're gonna have Darius. He, for the most part, might be working with more spiders. I could definitely see Darius because with Archnord Host now being played, and if you just add all these spiders, I think it could really make a deadly type of deck with Spider Rush. So maybe that's a new thing coming up for this patch. Hecarim, of course, is going to be played a lot differently, like we specified. We're going to be seeing more of like the Ephemerals. rather than just, you know, playing him mana dependency, right? Lux is going to be huge with Heimendinger, and we're going to be seeing a lot of gameplay with that, in my opinion, just because she, with the Mage Seekers, is going to ensure huge board control, which is really big, and we need that for Lux specifically. So she can constantly, you know, just keep using her laser and just, you know, bugging out everyone in the board. Anivia is gonna probably all as well be really big in this patch, just because I mentioned, right, Frejlord is gonna come up. So I do truly think Anivia is gonna be a big thing, especially with that new card that came out. I feel like Anivia, like, I feel like the way Riot is kind of picturing things is they want control, and Anivia, there's no anything better than Anivia control decks. Like, that's probably like one of the best out of everything. So I think if you're waiting for, you know, the turns to go by and you're waiting to just buff your minions, at the end of the day, if you're able to control that board, with which Anivia can do, I think you can really come up with a crazy deck with a Niv. I just don't think they're going to be playing her with Karma anymore. They might replace her and put like someone else like Tryndamere or something like that. I think that's a huge one, like I mentioned, since it's really late game, and that's how control decks are going to be going right now. I think that's about all the champions that we've covered. So I'm going to quickly show you guys, well, what decks I think are going to be the huge ones right now, right? So I believe truly out of all the champions that we're going to see, the Jinx and Draven Rush is going to be the best one out of everyone. Second is going to be Fiora and Garen, just because Jinx and Draven, like was stated, right? That deck was already good. But it got even better with all these buffs that came about it, and like now it also even has that like rummage fix to it if you have that in your deck. So I think that's gonna be overkill. Fiora Garen, 100%. That's gonna literally wreck everything. I mentioned how Garen got buffed, how Fiora Barrier is gonna benefit. You mix those together, it's gonna be a done deal. So that's a deck you're gonna want to invest in. Zed and Kalista, Lucian and Kalista. I feel like Kalista is going to be everywhere right now, but I feel like Zed, like, you know, you want to mix her up with a quick attack. So I think Zed or Lucian will be the perfect match for her, specifically because when they come alive in the ephemeral version, you're usually either going to hit face or you're going to, and with Zed you can summon another creature, and with Lucian you might even get his proc going or something around those lines. But I think a quick attack would be great with Kalista. We're going to see, of course, the Lux and Heimendinger Mage Seeker. That's going to be huge this patch, and that's literally probably going to be one of the most played decks out there, but it's not going to be the best in my opinion. But it's still going to be really good for control. So Yasuo, for the most part, like I mentioned, is going to be working with maybe Zed or something like that. But his deck is probably going to be very similar and not really any other changes. So I just don't think Yasuo is going to have that many changes in his current structure. There weren't really any things in the patch that were to affect his specific deck, so he's probably going to be around the same. Heimendinger is going to be hugely, I think, grouped with Lux, so that's something we have to look forward to. But yeah, in terms of Heimendinger, we're probably going to see in this patch, like Heim with his elusives, you just summon a lot of 3 manas in PNZ, and then you just summon his elusive so no one can really stop him, and then you basically are just going to end up winning the game. So I think that's going to be something. Elise, we're going to see hugely with the Spider Rush. I truly believe that. Maybe even with the Pranksters to deal constant damage every time your spiders die. Anivia control is going to be big without the Karma, in my opinion. We're going to have Elnuk control decks instead of just like having Ezreal, right? Because how you guys know, Ezreal was huge. Like, you could get random RNG by just dumping all of the Elnuks in one at turn 5, and then you just get lucky, right? But now they've made it so it kind of like takes time, right? You won't get all of them at once, so it's gonna take time now. You're only gonna be seeing a certain amount. Instead of 10, you're gonna be looking at the top 6 of your deck, and then if you have a full board, it's gonna recycle. So that's kind of what I see there's a huge control going on there, right? Because you're not losing the minions, you're kind of just putting them back in and hopefully getting them again. So if you buff those, it could be a really strong deck. Maybe grouped up with things like Anivia, Tryndamere, maybe Braum of that sort. And then I personally think that's probably those are going to be the biggest decks out there. But look for specifically Jinx and Draven, Fiora and Garen, and then we're going to look at as well as Lux and Heimendinger are going to probably be the 3 biggest decks out there that you have to look for this patch. I know that Poros are going to try being a thing with Braum, but I still don't think it's really where we need it to be. In terms of like, if you can still purify them, right? Or you can still like throw recall them with Ionia, stuff like that. That's like going to be a huge thing against Braum decks or like Poro decks in general. So that's something to really look at. But if you're not versing someone like an Ionia, you have a really decent or pretty good chance. And it could really be part of the meta, like with the whole spiders, if you want to try that out. But I feel like Poros definitely have a chance as long as you don't have things like that are going to mess you up, like in Ionia specifically. Or even like Demacia has some spells to kind of like target you. But anything that can stop your Poro from being huge is going to really be detrimental to that deck. But yeah, guys, that's literally what I think is going to happen for this meta. And I got all this data just based off of like seeing the decks that were good for the most part last patch, and I wanted to see what cards were nerfed, and based off of that nerf, right, that deck went down a little. It obviously buffed other decks, so that's basically all I did. I just looked at which ones went down, which ones went up, which ones were average out of those, and which one based off of those average ones that they're most likely the buffed decks, right? So that's kind of where I'm seeing that more people are going to be playing the buffed like type of scenario instead of like the whole the deck that like got nerfed, right? Shadow Owls per se. It's not bad, but we're going to see a lot less Shadow Owl players, meaning you're going to have more access to all of these other champions and regions that people are going to be mixing and matching. But yeah, guys, look out for these decks. I'm going to be making a video with all these new decks for this specific patch. So you could check out probably the links on my description, or you can go to the end of this whole video and there should be on like the video panel just showing you which deck build you want to check out for me. But yeah, guys, I appreciate that you guys were watching, and hopefully I explained pretty well, or hopefully I explained what you guys were looking for of my predictions for this specific patch, and let's see how true they are, right? Gang, take it easy. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and you know what I mean? I'll catch you guys on the West Coast. Yert. I just wanted to add that I do believe that now, since we're going to be having a lot of quick attack minions and a lot of rush cards and decks coming out, I do believe people are going to be turning to an alternative, which might be PNZ, and that's going to obviously have some conflict between the two decks, as well as, you know, trying other decks who are going to be trying to either, you know, capitalize over these smaller minions or actually buff their small minions so that they're going to have a huge control board over time.